Hi, I'm Kelly Corrigan. I'm so happy to be here at the Bay Area Book Festival, the first one ever, so welcome. I'm also super happy anytime I get to spend an hour with Ayelet Waldman and Michael Chabon, which is just about to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ayelet Waldman and Michael Chabon.
He always makes us sit like which side of the bed we're on. So because this is my side of the bed, I have to sit on this side.
Now I can
Hello.
relax. Good morning.
So tell us how you met.
Seriously?
Seriously. I just feel like that's the context we need to get started. Don't you feel like we need to know that story?
Okay, so I had this boyfriend named Charlie who was Catholic. And I really gave it my all. Like, I went to church and I tried to take communion, which if you aren't Catholic, it turns out you're not allowed to. Like, I thought it would be so fun, but you can't if you're
Plus, the wafers have
Jew.
hardly any calories.
I know, which was what the point was, why I was there. Anyway, I gave it my all, and then Charlie dumped me because I was Jewish, and I was really upset. And I was ranting to my roommate and her boyfriend about how I had put up with a lot from this guy, and my roommate's best friend said, "Oh, God, I know a Jew who'll go out with you." And that's how we met.
That was it, yeah. Then he called me and said, I have somebody I think you might like to meet. I was living 2 hours north of New York City. Ayelet was living in New York. And I said, I don't go on blind dates. I'm completely uninterested.
And this is back when dates could actually be blind.
Be blind.
Yes,
Yeah,
right,
you couldn't.
yes.
No
Well,
Googling.
I did a little research, but after he tells you that, I'll tell you.
Proto-Googling. You
He
did.
couldn't. Yeah, he couldn't. I was. He couldn't.
But
proto-Google
he had
me,
studied this thing called neuro-linguistic programming. This is what I attribute it to, which I understand is a form of mind control. And he did some kind of thing on me where he's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. And I was like, wait a minute, give me your phone number. So and I called you.
Oh, come on. He also said I had nice boobs.
True. Yeah, he did say that.
You can't really see them today, but they are just terrific.
It's just amazing. After breastfeeding 4 children.
Probably the best
yeah.
boobs in the
Well,
Bay
they're-
Area,
yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
I still like them.
I believe you made me blush. Yeah, I proto-Googled him, though, by which I mean I asked my friend Amy, who knew everybody, what she knew about him. And
She was like
said,
a social Google of
she was
New York. right?
Exactly. She said, "Oh, Michael Chabon. Well, first of all, he's gay, and second of all,
Which Ayelet took as a monster challenge. She was like, you give him to me,
I
baby.
actually
And
said,
married.
and married." So
And-
and that he broke up the 12-year relationship of his editor. So I immediately went to the bookstore, bought Mysteries of Pittsburgh, and I was like dedicated to his wife and a gay love story. So yes, all this is true. So the first thing I asked him when he walked through the door was, I said, dude, I have had the gay boyfriend. I don't need the gay boyfriend again. Are you? And he was like, fiction, it's all fiction.
And where'd you go on your first date?
We went to Savoy Restaurant in Soho in New York. And it was pretty much love at first sight, wasn't
Absolutely.
it? Yeah.
And you got married like a month later or something.
No, we got
crazy.
engaged 3 weeks later.
3
3 weeks later.
And so if one of your 4 children came to you and said they're marrying someone they just met 21 days ago,
Oh my God.
you would
It would
say,
sound like
good
the
for you,
worst
sweetie. It'll
idea.
probably last forever.
What's so weird is our parents were both like, yay, which I attribute to the fact that we had both been in such wildly inappropriate relationships before that they were just like, they're like, job, Jewish, excellent.
Done and done.
Yeah.
So you work together, which is mostly what I'd like to talk about today. But before we dive into the descriptive stuff, I'd like to hear you each give us 3 adjectives for the other person as
that
a
your
working
phone?
professional.
Turn my phone off.
Oh, for God's
That
sake.
phone.
Seriously?
No, I put on Do Not Disturb. What's the problem?
Oh my God.
And now your trousers are too snug. You
Yeah, I know. His sexy pants are too tight.
about that.
Three adjectives
I
to
did.
describe the other.
Okay.
As
you start so I know like what the tone of the answers
Yeah.
is.
How bitchy you can be.
Let's see. Focused. Open-hearted. Fierce.
Aww.
Now you can't say whiny,
I
neurotic.
didn't say anything. Well, okay, I'm going to go with, I know this sounds so trite, but I have to go with brilliant, first of all, because Michael is the smartest person I know.
And 3 people here agree with you.
Just 3. Supportive, because he is, we can go into that later. And fine.
Oh.
So tell us about a work day. Give us the sort of setting.
Well, it's
We just
interesting.
had a kind of a crisis in that sense.
Or a crisis, like a revolution almost. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to talk about it?
Well, it's hard to figure out where to start. I mean, we've been working for about 12 years by sharing an office space behind our house. We moved into a house here in Berkeley that had this little tiny office that had belonged to the man who built our house, a doctor who had a practice here and right
An
down here in the
abortionist.
Wells Fargo building. But then he had an office in our house where he saw patients, and that's all we knew for a little while. But then eventually we found out that he performed abortions in this little office in our house, sort of secretly. And our house, when we bought it, had been completely covered in vines. You couldn't see it from the street. It was also that it kind of would provide a certain amount of discretion. And that office, which still had a sink and a cabinet with where you would keep your medical
And instrument
instruments
drawers,
and stuff. That was initially my office when we moved into the house where I worked, but I don't know what was wrong with it from my point of view. It was too much in the house. It was under the stairs, and I just didn't feel quite enough sense of separation. So we built this office behind our house where I started working, and then you took over that little office, and you didn't like it.
I hated it. I
either.
mean, I loved the history of Dr. Schaefer. I loved the idea that this man had been providing this service
a
to the
brave
women of
thing.
Berkeley. But it was dark. It was just, our whole house is dark. We have a Berkeley brown shingle, and it has those wood panels that, the wainscoting all the way up. And it just was a really dark, dark space. So I eventually, I tried to work in cafes, and I tried to work in, in a little office space. And eventually Michael said, just come and move in with me. And I did. We shared an office for at least a decade. We worked back to back. His desk was here, my desk was here. He mostly works at night, but he would be out there enough time during the day so that he could always tell when I stopped working and went on the internet, because you
The
said,
click pattern would be different.
and he'd be like, hey, stop wasting time.
Now there's an app for that.
I
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
exactly.
I mean, we mostly worked at separate times of the day over that period. And then it just, I don't know, it was, in a way, it was like an expedient solution. It never worked perfectly. And there was an increasing sense of sort of reluctance for you to go out there
It
and
felt like
work
I
and-
was squatting in taking up space in his space.
And so finally, now we busted you loose. I
Well,
mean,
but first we had to have a huge fight. Michael kept
Not
saying,
one.
like a dozen.
no, like 5. I'd
You
say
need
5.
a room of your own, and I would say, I do not, because for me there was this
I
like,
think it's really annoying to have your husband start quoting Virginia Woolf at you,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I think
I
it's
would imagine
illegal,
that would be
as far as I've
annoying.
heard.
But we resolved it. Actually, what we ended up resolving, and I hope there's nobody here from the Berkeley Historical Society. We resolved it with a gallon of white paint. I kept saying, he said, just work in the house, and I said, I hate that space. It's too dark. And then we had this thought, just because it's original doesn't mean the whole house is dark wainscoting, and we've kept it very, we've husbanded it for
Listen, you can
next
feel the horror
generations.
just rippling
but
through
we
the audience when you
we
say it.
painted it all. We painted it all white, and
Just
now
that one
I've
room.
never. But that little room, we painted it white, and I moved in, and I have a room of my own, and God bless Virginia Woolf, and it's been kind of amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, we still work together in the sense, right? We still work together in the sense that we edit each other very closely. Right now, I'm waiting for him to do a pass on a screenplay, a teleplay that I wrote for HBO.
Chop, chop.
Yeah.
Notice that was a subtle
It was
reminder.
It's
just,
fun to do that in front of people.
You don't need an app for that.
and we pass stuff back
We're
and
always collaborating in a loose, informal sense in terms of just using each other as sounding board, and then using each other as editor and reader and responder and hand holder and all of that stuff. And we actually, in the past few years, we've actually collaborated directly for the first time on a screenplay, a teleplay, and working on a musical, and that actually works well. In some ways, when we're directly collaborating, writing together, it's my sense is pretty trouble. Like we just kind of get down to it and we pitch ideas and we're working. Sometimes, frequently, less. It used to be worse than it is now, but it can still be pretty intense. We like the editing each other can get a little bit dicey sometimes.
Yeah.
Usually because the one who's being edited just goes into it completely armed for battle and dripping with contempt for the idiotic judgments of the editor, whoever's filling that role, and
sometimes I'll say, just I'm right. So
exactly. All right, why are we wasting time? But I think we've gotten better at it, and it's been proven enough times that what inevitably happens is whoever's being edited and whoever came in with that attitude, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half later is like weeping in a puddle on the ground going, oh my God, you're right, it's a disaster, help me fix it, what do I do? And that's happened enough times that I think we're better, and especially if there's a deadline in question, then we just skip the fight.
yeah, we'll say, okay, register.
Yes.
I just want it to be clear that you're completely wrong, and now I will go do what you told
What's
me
that?
to do.
What's it called when you enter like things in court in a
deposition?
In a deposition, it's
when
like,
you say
stipulated.
you
You're
stipulate
an
your
idiot.
objection for the
Yes.
record, and you continue. with
But
the
like, let me
deposition.
hear what you have to say. Yeah.
It's such an art to give feedback.
Right.
Have you gotten much better?
Well, we give feedback to other people differently than we give it to each other. When we give feedback to other people, we try to do what we call the praise sandwich,
Oh,
which
no,
is
really?
praise, criticism, the meat, and then more praise. So, and when we edit each other, we often skip the bread.
Yeah, we're just
You're
what's
kind
it
of
called?
a no-carb
Atkins,
diet.
Atkins,
Yeah, we're on with the
Exactly.
Atkins diet of.
Oh my God! Tell us about what you've been collaborating on. That's so exciting.
Well,
Yeah,
we
no,
had this
it's
great idea for a series at HBO, which we set up at HBO, and then we wrote a couple episodes for it,
Yeah.
and it was it's a World War II spy drama about this team of escape artists and con artists and a
Spirit
fake spirit
mediums.
medium and people who are like charlatans of various kinds who are recruited by British intelligence to perpetrate deceptions against the Germans during World War II. It was great. It was really fun developing that. We had great characters, and it died there. And then it's been moving very slowly around, and it's actually sort of has a tiny pulse right now again, which it hasn't for a while. So, but
And what can you do in television that you can't do on the page? I
You
mean,
mean
what's
in-
the draw?
well, we love television.
We
so.
watch so much TV. Especially me. I love TV so much.
Give us a couple of your favorite shows right now, just so we know
everybody!
who we're
My
talking
favorite
to.
shows are everybody's favorite shows. I love Orange Is the New Black. I love Game of Thrones. I love
Veep? Are you doing Veep?
Yeah, I love Veep.
What about
Silicon Valley,
Outlander?
Outlander. Oh
Don't
my
know it. Do
God!
you know
Orphan
Outlander?
Black.
Anybody who wants to talk with me about the final rape scene, I need some. He doesn't watch it, and I have so many thoughts about the rape of Jamie, and no one to share them with. So, if
So we'll
there's
set up
anyone
a
in the
separate
audience-
table for
Yeah,
that
they have these
outside.
things called
The rape of
forums.
Jamie table.
Maybe you should go on Reddit, on the Outlander subreddit.
I did.
Oh, you did?
I can't believe you said that.
That's hilarious.
But for me, I think it's different. I love the work of making a TV show. I love being on set.
Well, you got really far by yourself
Yeah.
without
Yeah,
me.
so back up and tell these guys a little bit
I wrote
about
a pilot first. I've written a lot of TV pilots, more TV pilots than you. I mean,
Way more.
Yeah, like 8 of them, and for CBS, for CW, for whatever. And one of them made it as far as being shot, and I loved that. I loved the shooting. I loved working with the actors. I loved the teamsters. I just loved the whole process of
scheduling.
it. What do you love about it?
I just, when you see a great show like The Wire or Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones or, I'm really into the Netflix daredevil that's going right now. You know, when you see that and you realize that you have the opportunity for that kind of long arc storytelling and in a medium that lots of people plug into, it's very appealing. I mean, you can tell the same kinds of stories that you can tell in a novel, and do it in a different way, and in a way that's potentially with that potential open-endedness where you could just keep it going, you know, ideally.
And
for a long
discover it
time.
like a minute before the audience does. Almost.
Yeah. I mean,
Plus
it's
health
fun.
insurance.
Plus health insurance, right?
Frankly.
I mean, because frankly, I mean, yes, I think if you had like a really successful TV series, you could make a lot of money by doing it. But if you're someplace like HBO, actually the money's, as things go, compared to say doing movie writing or something like that, it's not in that league at all. So it's not like you really, the health insurance is nice.
Yeah.
But it's more, I think it's just more, it's like in the past decade and a half, it's been demonstrated that you can do incredible artistic storytelling through this medium if you get lucky and you get in the right place and with the right people. Mad Men is another example.
Yeah.
And also, you know, I just turned 50, Michael's 52. I think something that has surprised us about this point in our lives is that we both crave, I've always craved novelty, but it's sort of even more, it's surging even more in me and creatively. And Michael also has always craved novelty from a creative perspective, although not hardly personal, but we're like,
Not at all.
he likes to do the same thing every day.
is-
But
Yes,
but
exactly.
it not work-wise, right?
Right.
So the idea of doing something new, of having a new artistic challenge, is really exciting. He's writing music lyrics now. All of a sudden, if any of you have heard that song "Uptown Funk," that's just everywhere with the Bruno Mars song.
Right, you've heard it.
That's from an album called Uptown Special.
That's the one I didn't write
That's
the lyrics
one
to.
song of the album he didn't write the
You
lyrics
know the one
to.
that's really successful and is like
But all the rest of that
everyone
album,
around the world has at their wedding
not
right now?
that one.
That's not the one I wrote
The
lyrics.
other songs, those are his. But they're really good.
Mark Ronson's album Uptown
Yeah.
Special. Yeah. So that, I mean, it does feel suddenly like I'm not going to stop writing books by any means. I never want to, but I just suddenly have this sense of, well, what else could I be doing? Not for money, not because I need screenwriting work so that we can pay the health insurance but just to be doing something different with language, with words, and storytelling.
I mean, who knew that would be a part of this sort of the middle period of your life? But
But
that's
it
great.
wouldn't even be like if I could, I don't know, if the opportunity arose to do something like, I don't know, some other kind of opportunity, maybe not even writing related, that's somehow something I always wanted to try. I
Like
don't know what that would
hip-hop
be.
or-
Yes,
he's-
like
he's-
breakdancing or,
Yeah.
hip hop, totally.
I know,
He can lay down some
astronomy
tracks.
in the desert or something like that.
Is there ever a case where one of you is vetoing the other in terms of the project you want to take on?
Oh,
Or
Yeah, sometimes.
sometimes but only from the point of view, it would only be from the point of view, I think, of, does that make sense given that you have this commitment and that commitment, and is it such an
Doable.
amazing thing you can't possibly say no? And if not, maybe you should say no. Or
You've said to me, you don't really want to do that. You're
Right.
only doing that. Like for a while, I was writing these TV shows for CBS and the CW, and frankly, I was doing it because it was lucrative. And at some point, Michael said to me, "Why are it's making you miserable. Why don't you, if you want to write TV, write it for someone who will let you do the kind of thing you want to do, and don't do it just for the money. You don't have. I mean, that's a terrible reason to try to do something creative because you can never do it well. So."
unless you don't care.
Unless you don't.
If
well,
you
yeah.
can do it, if you can
I
go
tried
into
not
it,
to
yeah,
care.
you tried, but you can't. Yeah.
yeah,
So
no.
if you can do something for the money, if you can do something and absolutely have no concern whether it happens or not, whether it's lousy or not, then it's okay to just do it for the money. But that's the thing about Hollywood is they bait the trap and then they get you and you start caring. And once you start caring, you're dead. They have
And
you.
it's also just so different because when you write a book, you're the final word on it, and you're alone in the project fundamentally. I mean, there's some editorial notes, but you don't even have to take them. Whereas if you were to write a screenplay, by the time the thing you made becomes something that people are watching, it was almost like something you scribbled on the back of an envelope. It could change so much in the actual process of making it. So it's surprising to me that isn't unbearable to you as someone who works so hard. To you both.
Well, you know, it used to be harder for me than it is, and I think I've just, as I've gotten older, started looking for things that, like interesting collaborators or things that I can sort of lean on and as the process goes forward, and it gets more exasperating, and inevitably, especially with the Hollywood things, it can get exasperating, but you just have to ultimately though, I do just try to console myself by thinking, well, at least I got paid. Like that's always the ultimate consolation. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's not always enough, but it helps.
Yeah. How about you? Like, you don't mind collaborate or having things kind of whisked away from you and taken to a different place?
Collaborating. I love. I mean, there's nothing I like so much as collaborating. I love the feeling when you're well matched with your collaborator, that you're going back and forth and
Yeah.
sending things, and your ideas get deeper and richer and more evolved, just through the force of a bunch of different minds. I don't like, I mean, I was recently involved in a project, and I really liked what I did, my part of it, and then they wanted something really, really different, and they kept pushing on what they wanted, and eventually I had this conversation where I was like, well, I can give you this shit if this shit is what you want. And you will be surprised to hear that I got fired.
I mean, it all depends on whether the pressure that's being put on you to change things is coming from a place of how can we make this better, or how can we make this more effective, or is it coming from a place of how do we avoid colossal failure and defeat? And so often in Hollywood, especially in the movie, they're very distinct, the TV and the movie worlds, at least so far. In the movie world, it's so fear-based. It's so just reactive, and the other 3 movies that had that element were all flops, so take that out. We can't have that because it might be a flop.
Because it's so much money. There's so much money
Right.
on the table with movies.
Right,
That's
exactly.
where the fear
You're
comes
staking
from.
everything on one roll of the dice, essentially, and there's
Yeah.
no patience for failure. If it doesn't open well, it's over.
Yeah.
And it's not quite like that in TV. There's a little more patience to let things build and gel and take chances, especially not at the network level.
Not the networks,
especially-
but at some of the cable, I mean, people are doing incredible work. I mean, it's almost novelistic what you see.
Or like something
in
like
television.
Transparent, just that
Yeah.
level of risk-taking and not obvious. There's nothing obvious about that would work or should work or that people will like it or watch it, and
Yeah.
they did it anyway, and that's just hard to find.
So
in
if you could
movies.
collaborate with anyone on anything, what
Besides
comes to
each
mind?
other.
Besides each other. I
In
mean, you've been collaborating a lot. You have 4 children, so.
you mean in film, TV kind of?
Music?
Yeah.
Go for music too, or film or TV?
It's wide open.
I'd love to work with Wes Anderson, and I know him a little bit, and we've talked about it and flirted with it over the years, but it's still has not happened. But I think just to write with him would be really. I'd love to try that.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking about Transparent, I would love to just sit at the knee of Jill Soloway and see how she runs her set and runs her writer's room and works with her. I mean, that would be bliss.
Yeah. Have you ever been looking over each other's work and thought, "Oh, holy shit, that's me"? You just wrote it. I mean, other than the nonfiction
Actually,
stuff,
we've
which
al-
is absolutely
So funny.
We've had this is what, well, here's one example of the opposite, which is that in my book, The Yiddish Policeman's Union, there's a character of Bina, Mayor Landsman's ex-wife, Bina Gelfish, and I just completely 100% modeled her on Ayelet. Like her physical appearance, her manner, her way of talking, her attitude toward things, literal lines taken from the mouth of Ayelet and put into the mouth of Bina Gelfish.
Turns out you're really quite lazy, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. And she read this novel 9 times
9.
in draft, right? Like draft
Over and
after
over.
draft, and like I changed it completely, but I kept the character of Bina. And she read this book so many times. It came out, it got published, people started to read it, and a former editor of mine was at the book party and came over to Ayelet and said, oh, I love the book, and I was so touched by Michael's beautiful portrait of you and the character of Bina. And Ayelet was like, what? She didn't even notice.
Incredible, because you have strong self-knowledge. I mean, this is
I know, it's just nuts. I don't know. And now, of course, I'm like, what? Oh
You
my
know
God.
why? Because it was affectionate, and she came off like an awesome person. And Ayelet's low self-esteem, I think, just didn't enable you to see such a cool person
I
as
think
like.
that's actually the truth.
Yeah.
Isn't that sad? Yeah.
I left that part out of Bina.
yeah. How about you? Have you ever put him on the page other than in nonfiction?
Yeah,
Yes.
often, over and
Peter
over
and the
again.
Nursery.
Remember when I got my start writing these sort of silly, lighthearted little murder mysteries? That there are lots of literary mysteries in the world. These were not literary mysteries. And the husband is just Michael, and I made him
Cleverly disguised him by making him not Jewish. Exactly. Nobody will ever guess.
And then after the first draft, my editor said, "This husband is just such a goddamn paragon. You have to make him a little less perfect." So I had to deviate from the truth. Aw. But then the fun part was that I got to cast an actor to play him, so which was really great. So I cast. What was Reese's last name? Reese Coiro, who Google.
Well, he was on Entourage. He was the
an
crazy film director on
the
Entourage.
crazy director
Oh,
on
sure,
Entourage.
totally.
So I cast him because I was like, who is like Michael but like younger
and hotter.
sexy. So, and it was this very weird thing when you cast like your own sex object, basically. But yeah, I did that.
Did you ever hear?
I also cast as the lead, the woman, this actress, Rochelle. Oh my God, what's happening with my memory?
Rochelle.
You're 50.
Right? All nouns, proper, especially gone. Anyway, she has this she's tall and gorgeous, but she has this cascading red curls. It's like the Hollywood version of me, like young or tall or pretty or sexy or better hair, but just almost. So that was fun too. The network, when I showed them the cast list, they were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Nothing."
Did you? I heard Elizabeth Gilbert tell this story of when they were casting Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah.
That they cast Javier Bardem. And she was on the phone with the casting people, and she said, "Oh, I don't want people to think I just fell for him because he's really good looking. I was picturing someone less attractive and blah, blah, blah." And her husband is standing in the background. And then she hangs up the phone, and he says, "You didn't say anything when they cast Julia Roberts."
That's funny.
That's great.
Tell us what you guys are working on now.
I'm in the middle of a screenwriting project that's a Frank Sinatra kind of a biopic, but that doesn't really hopefully do it full justice. But I finished a draft of that took up about 6 months of my life, and I'm also in the middle of a novel. Which
How
I
come
have
you
to
never
finish
say that
soon.
it's from Martin Scorsese? That's so the most important
Because
part.
I don't want to curse it.
Oh, okay.
He'll quit
Can't
tomorrow
afford-
if I say that.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a pretty fun person to collaborate with.
Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
actually had a chance to collaborate with him yet, but
Yeah.
I did meet him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How'd
that
that go? Give us a little color.
Meeting Martin Scorsese, what I told Ayelet, it was like sitting in a room with the world's greatest Martin Scorsese impersonator. He was like so him. It was like the eyebrows, and he was telling the stories, and I was like, this is uncanny. It was a thrill. It was a thrill.
Yeah.
And he gave me such, I had, an hour and a half of his time, and he just completely, a combination of storytelling and clear directives and, no pussyfooting around, and very well expressed cogently, just told me, what he was hoping for, what he wanted the script to be, what he wanted to have in it, what he didn't want to have in it. It was so, such good direction. Just set me off.
What mistake in a screenplay will you not make this time? What have you learned to let go of over the course of writing these screenplays?
Cleverness.
Trying to be too clever?
Yeah. But you have to be ingenious, so sometimes it's easy to get those things mixed up. And you have to try to solve storytelling problems in an ingenious way. You have to how do I compress this time? How do I convey to the audience that 5 years have gone by, or
Right.
that whatever it is? and you have to kind of be ingenious. There are a lot of cliche ways to do that. You have the pages blowing off the calendar, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, and you can start there, right? And then try to think your way through all those things, and then like, no, those are all cliches. Well, how else could I do it? So you do need that kind of ingenuity, but at the same time, like I always am fighting against the urge to show off how clever these solutions can be, and so that's what I've tried to be more straightforward, more direct, more like avoid cliche, but also just don't get too fancy.
And what does that let come through? Like, what is that in service of?
Brevity, because
it's
your
so-
space
such a
is so
tight-
limited, and,
Yeah.
and especially with something like with this Sinatra thing, there's so much that I could. I mean, it's an adaptation of an article by Gay Talese, a very famous article that Gay Talese wrote called "Frank Sinatra Has a Cold." That is really just a very focused moment in Frank Sinatra's life in 1965 when he's about to turn 50. So it's not like a walk the line
Sure.
or Ray kind of a thing of like, that boy sure does love to sing, you know, like.
He does seem
Who
to
are
like
those
the
men
mafia.
with the violin cases, Daddy?
Right.
You know, like, it's not. Stay away from them. They're bad. It's not like that kind of thing. It's focused, but
Yeah.
but still, there's so much to leave out or keep in, or to decide what
Yeah.
to, you know, what's essential, what's not essential. So everything's in service of keeping it under 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, although with Martin Scorsese,
Yeah, he's not
you feel
afraid to go a
less of
little
that
long,
pressure.
yeah.
But still.
And then
Ayelet,
your
what do
book?
Oh,
You
yeah.
want to talk about your book? No.
No.
Okay.
Maybe we'll come back to that.
Well, I just got fired from this movie project.
Congratulations.
Yes. A good,
We're
best
proud
thi-
of you.
best thing
We're
that could
proud
have
of you for
happened.
playing straight.
I'm working on a pilot for HBO that's set here in Oakland. I'm working on a novel that I don't want to talk about yet. And I'm working on a nonfiction, a book,
Secret.
a secret nonfiction book project that I also don't want to talk about.
Well, this is a great interview.
You're welcome. You know
You know what
sometimes
you
I
should
feel
talk
like-
about? You could talk about, if you wanted to, the
Yeah?
breaking the silence thing. No?
Oh, no, that's
No?
secret too.
That's secret
That's
too?
even more
Never mind.
secret.
So don't break the
Dude,
silence. Sorry.
Now you've blown it.
Oh, well.
Okay, never mind. Nothing. We're working on nothing, really. Nothing.
We don't work.
We just kind of hang. You know what I will talk about? We had this idea. We went to Morocco last Christmas. We took all our kids, our
It was
four
her
kids.
50th
It was my 50th birthday. And what I wanted was a trip with a family. So we went to Morocco. We had this incredible, incredible time. And we were in the desert at one point, and Michael looks around and he says,
It was the Atlas Mountains.
the Atlas Mountains. And he said, this is where Gentlemen of the Road, which is this wonderful short novel that he wrote that we call in our house Jews with Swords. It's like set in, what's the year?
It's set in 1000.
Yeah, so
around
and it's
1000.
these
But
two,
it's set in Central Asia, but we were in Morocco. The
and it
landscape
just looked perfect. And Michael said, I wish I could direct a movie write the screenplay and direct this movie. And I said, I wish I could produce that movie. So somewhere in the back of our minds is, I've been sitting and thinking about it a lot, and I feel like we could do it for $10 million. So if any of you has
Let's kickstart it.
10 mil, we'll kickstart it for, yeah, right, that'll work.
Okay, will you tell us a
would
little
that
bit
work?
about...
No.
We could try it.
We get like $1.75 from our mother.
Yeah.
My mother is not going to give anything. Michael's mother will give $1.75.
I want to open it up to the floor, and we
Yes,
have to
please.
leave this room by 10 of. But before we do, I'd like to ask you 7 quick questions.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Are you ready?
Okay, yes. The lightning round.
Michael, you may go first. What song have you listened to more than any other?
Now, do you mean by choice or like it's been imposed on?
I'll
Like,
take...
are we talking like Stairway to Heaven?
No, by choice,
By
I think,
choice,
is
okay.
more revealing. Don't you agree?
I think there's a song by Roxy Music called Mother of Pearl that I loved so much when I was 20, 21, 22 years old that I think at that point, I must have listened to it more than I've ever listened to any other song.
Can you
before.
sing a little bit?
Really?
Sure. Look, these people came out on a Sunday morning. Give them some singing.
Well, let's see. Okay, why not? Well, I've been up all night again. Party time wasting is too much fun.
Thank you. What song have you listened to more than anything?
Music for 18 Musicians by Steve Reich, which is a minimalist
Oh,
classical
right.
piece that I listen
Right.
to over and over and over again while I work, like literally on repeat that album until I am done working, so like 5 hours a day.
Say it again slowly.
Music for 18 Musicians by the composer Steve Reich.
Okay.
And I will not sing it. Beep, 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 beep. It's minimalist classical music.
If you had a year to get really good at something, what would you try?
Learning how to play the electric guitar.
Speak French.
Really?
We just
Why?
got back from Paris. We were like riding our Valise bicycles with your hair in the wind, and all I needed was like a baguette in the basket, and I would have had the perfect life.
Little beret.
A little beret.
Before Monica Lewinsky ruined them. Michael,
We like her again.
Yeah, I know. She's back, right?
Oh, I didn't know that. I hadn't gotten the memo.
Yeah, I'll
No,
let you
she
know.
did a TED
I'll tell you
Talk.
all about it. TED Talk.
She did a
It's
TED
great.
Talk.
Okay.
Who do people say you look just like?
Well, I used to get Robbie Benson, but I think it was because of my voice. People would hear my voice and think I sounded like Robbie Benson. And then I think my favorite, this was only one person ever told me this, but I enjoyed it. So, and that was he told me I look like Karen Black. Which I thought was just so bizarre a thing to think. I enjoyed that.
I look like my daughter Rosie, but only from the back. We have identa-butt.
That's so true. So true.
Michael, if your mother wrote a book about you, what would it be called?
I'm not really sure. I don't know.
She'd be busy with other things.
It would be, I think it would be, I'm not sure she would have like a book's worth of material on me. That's why
She's a lovely, lovely woman, but she just,
I think it's be like a short story.
How about you?
Grudge Match by Ruby Waldman.
What would you like to see fixed in your lifetime?
What would I like to see fixed in my lifetime? It's the things are so huge that then you feel like you have to go small because otherwise, obviously hunger, disease, want, all of those things.
Climate change.
I'd like to see all that fixed, but really everybody wants to see those things fixed. So I think I would just have to go with, I would like there to be more electric vehicle charging stations all over the place because I have an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
And people who don't have electric vehicles take my parking places.
On the macro, I was born in Israel, so I'd really like to see some kind of resolution there that did not involve Bibi Netanyahu. But on the micro, right? On the micro level, and
You said
maybe we can
revolution, which
do
I
this. I would like Shattuck Avenue closed to traffic. I would like it to be a pedestrian, right?
Mean auto
Think
traffic.
about how amazing that would be if we didn't have cars and we just had this great pedestrian thing and it was wonderful and downtown would become even more vibrant and exciting and wonderful.
That's a good one.
Anybody
I like
here
that.
in a position of authority to make that happen?
Yeah. So there's the rape table, there's the I want to give you $10 million for your project table, and then there's the I will close Shattuck Avenue
Not
for you
just
table.
a rape table. It's very specific. It's the rape of Jamie.
Michael,
All of you must think I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, it's like the most astonishing scene I've seen on TV.
Is that what they think on Reddit too?
Yes. Jamie's a man, by the way, just to be clear.
are you finished?
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about Outlander.
I don't know it, so I'm a little in the dark. If everyone on Earth could kill one person without repercussion, would you be killed? By whom and why?
Jonathan Franzen would have your ass.
No, we did it on The Simpsons. We got into it on The Simpsons. I kicked his butt. That was just, it's so weird because like that thought has just never occurred to me. And I still don't quite know what to do with it. I find it very disturbing because now it just seems like it could just be about anybody. Like you don't really know anyone, so everyone could conceal the psychotic, homicidal maniac, and it could be the person I least expect is going to jump me cut my throat and leave me in an alley somewhere. So I'll just go with everybody.
I was once, I still am, I think, on this list called the Capo list of self-hating Jews by these, crazed Zionists, right-wing Zionists. So I'm sure, but I don't know that I would be high enough on the list. They probably would want to get Natalie Portman before they got me.
Mm-hmm.
If you could say 4 words to anyone, whom would you address and what would you say?
I would, my 4 words are good for everyone, just like the people who are going to kill me.
Right. You're very broad thinking today.
Yes, and it's something that I only just learned this year at age 52, but I want to share the wisdom because these 4 words are applicable in so many situations, and they will just keep you out of trouble if you can remember them, and it's don't take the bait.
Okay, my 4 words are very specific. They're addressed to one of our children. And those words are, no more tattoos, please.
I think that we have about 7 minutes, so if anyone would like to ask a question. Yeah, right here in the front row.
Woo! Pittsburgh! Pittsburgh!
What did I bring from Pittsburgh? Oh, thank you. Pittsburgh was a place that I lived when I was the most open to experience that I've ever been in my life. So, because my father moved there when I was about 13, after my parents divorced, and I started going to visit and stay with him, and then I went to college there. So between ages of 17 and 21, that's the time when I basically said yes to everything, and I did that in Pittsburgh. So it really just permeated and penetrated me at this point in my life when I was really susceptible to all kinds of things, from chemical influences to personal influences and experiences, and so it became the landscape of that moment in my life for me. And it's such or at least I can't speak to what it's like now. It seems when I go back, it hasn't changed in this fundamental way too much, which is that it's a place of it's a quirky, eccentric place where there's a tolerance for a level of kind of crotchety oddness. In some ways, like Berkeley.
That's just like Berkeley. How is that not
but Berkeley,
Berkeley?
there's
Crotchety oddness?
Yes, but no
Right.
tolerance.
Ah.
Everyone's crotchety oddness is getting in the way of everyone else's crotchety oddness here, right? It's like, that's my oddness.
In the parking lot of the
Yeah,
bowl.
stay on your third of the sidewalk. But in Pittsburgh, and then people are so friendly, and you can strike up a conversation, and sometimes you're obliged to, with total strangers, and there's a sort of like, people get into your business in Pittsburgh and start asking you, like, "Yins guys like punk rock," and it was a good place to be open, because there was everyone around you was sort of willing to come along or get into trouble with you, and I don't know, and it's got that magical landscape with the hills, and it was important to me. I'm glad that's where I was when that was happening.
I love doing an event in Berkeley because our lactation consultant is in the second row.
Oh, really?
Fritzy!
Oh, yeah.
It's been a long time since we needed her
Fritzy.
services, but
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Are you feeling anything? Any tingling?
Let down.
yeah, no.
Any other questions? Yes.
We have a microphone. Wait
Nope.
for the microphone, please. Take it.
Oh.
No, now.
I've recommended that a lot of people read Bad Mother and
Thank
Manhood
you.
for Amateurs, one after the other, but I've always wondered if you plan to write them both from the beginning, or if one followed the other as a concept.
I wrote Bad Mother, and then I said, Michael had been writing these columns, and I said to him, dude, you have a book. You have a book worth of essays about fatherhood and being a husband and being a man. And then I actually sat down
Actually,
with all
you
the
found
material.
2 books,
I
remember?
found 2 books. I sat down with all of his essays, and I sort of picked out 2 different strains and made that book.
And one became Maps and Legends, which is more focused on writing and literature.
And was published as a fundraiser for 826 Valencia.
Right, and then the other one became Manhood for Amateurs. But I think it was once you had started looking at your own collected nonfiction writing that way, then you sort of
Yeah.
turned my attention to mine. There are some there's some overlap.
Funny
right? Yeah.
bits of overlap. Mike always says that I steal his best lines, so he's definitely sometimes he looks at an essay and he's like, "You did not say that. I said that." I'm like, "Are you sure? I really remember
You weren't
saying
even there.
that. I remember saying
Wait, how
that."
how could I not have been there? I remember it so clearly.
I think we have time for one more question. Yeah, up there in the vest. That's you. Yep.
Oh,
All right,
I'm thinking
you
about
got
it.
10 million bucks, lady, because we are ready to go.
I have an idea for another one. I'm not sure when I'll get to it, but I do have an idea for another one. So.
Hey, I want to say a big thank you to Freight and Salvage.
And to you, Kelly. Thank
Yes,
you so much for
Kelly
doing this. Let's
Corrigan,
give a
you're so
round of
awesome.
applause to Kelly Corrigan,
And
whose incredible book, Glitter and Glue, is available outside for sale.
that's nice. You're nice. Also, the San Francisco Chronicle has been a huge sponsor of this whole thing, so can we have a round of applause for that?
Yeah, San Francisco
Let's
Chronicle.
keep them alive.
Yeah. The three of us will be outside signing books at those tables, so we'll see you in 2 seconds.